It began with a crackling transmission on the shortwave, barely louder than static. All officers, I die. The voice was tinny but unmistakable, tinged with panic. There was a trailing gasp, and then silence. I was 36 years old at the time, a radio man for the Dutch salvage firm Van de Graaf and Company, and I had heard my share of maydays and distress calls in the years since the war. But never anything like this. I can still feel the tremor in my hands, pressing over, calling back into that emptiness. It was February 5th, 1948, and no one aboard the tanker Willem Barents dared speak above a whisper. After that transmission, I remember the skies were leaden as we crept through the Strait of Malacca toward the coordinates the broken voice had given us, a point on the chart that corresponded to nothing but shifting currents and half-remembered shoals. Indonesia was aflame with its struggle for independence. Markets were ghostly by day, abandoned at night. Rumors circulated of guerrilla bands snatching supplies from wrecks, of Dutch officers disappearing on the jungle fringes. Against that backdrop, a lone tramp steamer, drifting without lights, should have been just another curious but unremarkable anomaly. Yet every sailor aboard the Willem Barents felt in their gut that something was very wrong. Our orders were simple: intercept, board, and tow the vessel, identified in the radio traffic as SS Ourang Medan, back to Batavia for inspection. Beyond that, we knew nothing of her manifest or ownership. Lloyd's registry contained no mention of her, nor did the Dutch shipping columns in the Java Bode. Whatever she was carrying, it was a secret so closely held that no official record would survive. That secrecy would prove lethal. Standing on the deck as our launch approached, I had the unsettling sensation of plunging headfirst into a grave. The Ourang Medan was a dark silhouette against the gray sea, her superstructure pitted with rust, her masts naked of rigging. No lights beat against the gloom, no running lights. The only movement was the swell that pressed and released her hull, like the rise and fall of a corpse's chest. I snapped photographs through the binoculars, grainy shots that later developed into smeared blotches, as if the film itself recoiled from what lay beyond the lens. We tied the lines, and our boarding party clattered up the rusted companionway. I carried only a handheld radio and a lantern. The salvage master brought a revolver. He had a healthy respect for ghost ships, having heard stories of diseased bodies afloat. But neither of us expected the horror that awaited us. At first, all was eerily silent. No groans, no creaks of aging timber. We found the bridge empty, charts strewn across the binnacle, the logbook open to the last entry. 0017, February 1st. All officers, including Captain Silva, dead. I die. In looping script, smeared with something dark, the ink bled. I dared to follow the blood-like stains down the corridor. The first body lay in the mess hall, a seaman face down on the table, his arms contorted beneath him, claws half-curled around a pewter mug. The mug was cracked, the handle snapped, but no liquid remained. His uniform had once been navy blue. Now it was gray and stiff, as if calcified by salt and time. His mouth hung open in a silent scream, teeth bared. Behind him lay another man on his back, eyes wide and unseeing, arms outstretched toward the ceiling, as though begging for mercy from an invisible hand. We pressed on, flashes of the lantern revealing bodies in every hatchway. In the galley, a cook lay draped across the stove, tendrils of oil still congealing on his apron. In the engine room, 2 stokers clutched the main drive shaft, knuckles white, eyes rolled back. There was no sign of struggle, no weapons, no spilled cargo, no footprints beyond the paths the bodies lay in. Equipment hummed quietly, coal still smoldering in the bunkers. The only living thing was the engine's low thrum, marking the final heartbeat of a doomed ship. Our salvage master snapped orders: secure the hatch, bring the bodies topside. But by then I felt a weight in the air, a stench that clung to my lungs. Part brine, part rot, part something metallic. I remember my radio failing in short bursts, cutting out whenever I spoke. The others reported strange interference, squeals and whistles like the hiss of escaping gas. We wore no protective gear, for we had no reason to suspect chemical contamination, and yet I felt the sting of invisible particles scratching my throat. When we breached the hold, it was as if we opened Pandora's box. The cargo lay in stacked crates, broken and leaking a viscous yellow fluid that pooled on the deck. The smell was acrid, like burning mustard seeds. I recognized the labeling in faded stencils: U.S. Govt, chemical cargo, handle with extreme caution. My heart thundered as rumors of wartime nerve agents flooded my mind. The Geneva Protocol had forbidden their use in 1925, but here was proof that somewhere, someone had defied international law. The bodies had begun to move, not with volition, but with spasms, arms twitching, heads lolling. One of the deckhands screamed as a man who had seemed long dead lurched to his feet, staggering toward the hatchway with ragged breaths. His uniform was charred in places, as if he'd been exposed to intense heat or acid. We backed away as the man's eyes fixed on us, black pits that held no reflection. Then he collapsed again. Panic spread among the crew. Someone suggested tossing the crates back into the hold, sealing the hatch, and letting the ship drift. Another wanted to blow open the bottom valves and scuttle her right there. The salvage master insisted on towing her to port, but his voice shook. His pistol hand trembled. I could see him calculating risk, weighing the secrecy of our orders against the clear and present danger. I volunteered to go below once more, hoping to patch the hull's plating to slow a leak. When I stepped down, the lantern's glow revealed an almost ritualistic arrangement of bodies. The officers lined along the starboard bulkhead, the ratings arrayed by rank on the port, all facing a crudely carved symbol scrawled on the steel, 6 interlocking triangles forming a star. It reminded me of a banned runic alphabet I'd studied in the Naval Intelligence Archives. I felt my skin crawl. There, amidst the bodies, a crate lay open, torn from its bindings, its contents spilled. Vials, syringes, and papers marked top secret. I snatched one of the papers and flicked on my headlamp. The ink was in German. Versuch Unrecht, Project Aurelius, cellular gift gas. Attempted injustice, cell-based poison gas. The letters swam before my eyes. Even an amateur linguist would recognize the horrors implicit in that document. A rogue program, perhaps initiated by remnants of the Third Reich, to continue chemical weapons research in Southeast Asia. I could practically feel the old ghosts of Dachau and Auschwitz whispering behind me. Then I heard it, a low, keening sound, like metal scraping on metal, echoing from the bowels of the ship. Every sailor aboard was frozen in place, lantern beams wavering. I tugged at my collar, my chest tightening, my throat raw from inhaling that stench of death. My radio fell silent, my boots stuck to the oily planking. I realized with dread that the ship was settling, listing to port under the weight of its dead crew and poisoned cargo. Alarms shrieked as the steward tried to unjam the starboard hatch. Water poured in, black and oily, carrying a film of that yellow fluid over the deck. One by one, we scrambled up the ladder, hauling the salvage master with us. As I reached the top, the lantern plunged into black water, snuffing out our only light. We found ourselves on the main deck in darkness, the silhouette of the mast swaying overhead like a gallows. A scream ripped through the night, sharp, inhuman. It came from below. Someone cursed and dropped to their knees, clutching their face. Great blotches erupted across their skin, turning it papery and translucent. I could see veins snaking beneath. The lantern was relit in a frenzy, and I shone it on our faces. The eyes of two men had gone milky white, pupils gone. They gurgled and fell backward into the rising water. I thought then that I would die of shock. The sea itself hid in shadow, pressing against the hull as if watching us, waiting. The salvage master barked orders to cut the lines. He left the winch, deserted the pilot house, and sprinted to the bow to sever our connection. None of us followed. We couldn't. The moment he touched the cable, there was a blinding flash, like a great bolt of lightning splitting the night, and a chorus of high-pitched shrieks burst from the holds. The ship lurched violently, and the cable snapped. The Willem Barents reeled free, its propellers churning. I grabbed the railing and looked back. In the flare of our running lights, I saw bodies still floating in the water, drifting away from that cursed hulk. I will never forget the sight. Hands reaching, mouths gaping, eyes fixed upward in eternal agony. As dawn lightened the eastern sky, the Ourang Medan was gone, swallowed by the waves as if she had never existed. No wreck washed ashore, no debris field was filed. It was as if the sea had reclaimed her by force. Back in Batavia, I filed my report and was debriefed by naval intelligence. They labeled my story unverified, citing the lack of a surviving vessel or corporate owner. I was shown a telegram from London. No record at Lloyd's under name Ourang Medan. No company by that name exists. They asked if I had been dreaming, hallucinating. They suggested stamped rations, seasickness, the trauma of wartime. But I had the incriminating documents that I had slipped into my jacket pocket. Pages stained with oil and blood, typed in overwrought German script, sealed with an eagle insignia. I refused to hand them over. Over the following weeks, the crew of the Willem Barents fell ill with fevers and hemorrhagic coughs. 2 men died in quarantine. Their corpses arrived in wooden crates marked confidential. The rest vanished, transferred to the hospital ship Johan de Witt, reassigned, or simply declared missing. I was left alone in the radio room, derided by colleagues as a fantasist. Yet every night, my dreams were invaded by the silent faces of those dead men, their mouths open, their eyes shining with an otherworldly light. I sold my commission and left the sea. I took a clerical job in The Hague, where I spent months deciphering the Aurelius files, cross-referencing them with war crime records and chemical weapons treaties. There were echoes of Unit 731's experiments in Manchuria, of the Nazis' nerve gas stockpiles in Torgau. There were rumors of an Indonesian guerrilla faction supplied with stolen chemical munitions, but no definitive proof. The whole affair remained buried under diplomatic red tape and strategic necessity. No nation wanted to expose the truth. Decades have passed since I heard that dying voice. I no longer hear static crackle in empty wavelengths, but sometimes when I turn on an old receiver, I swear I catch a faint echo. I die. I cannot tell whether it is the wind, the corrosion of valves, or something more sentient, a warning from the deep. I sometimes lie awake at night, wondering how many ships lie hidden on the ocean floor, cargoes of terror awaiting rediscovery. The Czech chemist Victor does not appear in any Allied reports, nor do his notes on aerosolized agents. They are locked away, if they exist at all, in vaults in The Hague or Washington, too dangerous to see the light of day. I have never told this story in full, for fear of sounding insane, but as the world hurtles toward another era of chemical and biological weapons, I feel compelled to share what I saw. The Ourang Medan may have been just one vessel, one secret project, but it is emblematic of our capacity for cruelty and our willingness to conceal it. Sea and sky have long memories, and sometimes they speak in voices we would rather ignore. So take heed. If you ever encounter a drifting hull, a silent transmission, a crate stamped with forbidden insignia, retreat. Leave the vessel to the deep and obey no orders to bring her home. Some things are best left buried, for when you pry open Pandora's hatch, you may not like what crawls out, and I, for one, would rather carry the memory of that night than risk unleashing it again.